Good evening and welcome to Washington County Flag Football Live from Boonesboro, Maryland, inside of my house in a very small room. I am your host, Joey Basford, back again after a 2-week hiatus where last week we did a write-up instead. Speaking of which, there's going to be a format we're going to see for a bit. There will be some weeks where I do a live episode, other weeks where I may do a write-up instead due to it being a much better format for certain occasions, such as last week where I was going for a midterm evaluation of each team. Some other news and tidbits. I have talked to another place, a third place, about hosting. They say they're fine with it. We just got to call and talk to them the day of, which that's why if I can get a number of people to commit that day to an episode, we'll go up there and shoot. The new location is actually down by South Hagerstown High School, so it's much closer, I'd imagine, for a lot of you, especially those coming from around West Virginia or those around from Frederick County and all that. So I won't disclose the name of the place yet, but whenever we film there, hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll have more information about it. For the moment, Tony's is still on the limb with us. I'm still using them for the time being, but like I said, this place seems a little bit better. We're going to test it out hopefully next week and see how it goes. Anyways, with that, let's get to the results of this week's games. The first matchup of Saturday was X-Dogs dominating the Warriors 39-0. An absolute mismatch from start to finish. X-Dogs annihilated them on both sides of the ball. This was just not close. And, a lot of it was Warriors had some intangible pieces. Cody Snavely starting for John Shobe at quarterback. Shobe was unable to attend due to a wedding. Warriors are also dressing only about 14, 15 guys on the sideline. But needless to say, at the end of the day, the thing that matters is the result. For the X-Dogs, Matt Eisenberg threw 5 touchdowns, one of Jason Vaughn, Paul Burkholder, Sean Michael, I believe it says, Brandon Stum, and Riley Bowen. Tyhee Taylor threw 1 touchdown to Eisenberg. Tyler Baum, Steven Snowden, and Sean Michael each had an interception. And Logan Burns added 2 extra points, and Brandon Stum added 1 extra point. So all around, everybody getting involved for the X-Dogs. Very good sign going into playoffs with the amount of depth players they seem to have. Stats and note, X-Dogs has not allowed a single point in back-to-back games. You could say competition, but at the same time, it's still pretty impressive whenever you shut out a team. The second game of the day was Knights defeating the Assassins 32-6. This was a close game for about 3 quarters. And the Assassins, in fact, only trailed 12-7 at halftime, courtesy of, or 12-6, I apologize, courtesy of their first touchdown pass of the season from quarterback R.J. Hilliard to Dave Maxwell. They rallied in the third. They even drove to the Knights' 7-yard line when R.J. Hilliard's touchdown run was called just short of the end zone on 4th down. It was a bang-bang play. He stuck the ball out at the 1. Unfortunately for Hilliard, the flag was pulled, and they called him down to the 2-yard line. The Knights then scored on a 98-yard drive to pull away with the final result. Honestly, this was their best game to date. They looked like a much better team. They had more numbers, which led to more points. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to victory. However, in all sincere honesty, this is not a loss on terms of moral standpoint. This is a moral victory. This is a building block. You just played your best game to date against one of the golden 3 teams of the league, which I always say is Broad Axe, Knights, and X-Dogs. They are the true old guard elites. On top of that, they scored a touchdown, and they seem like they're getting more people. And Brian told me today, he has confirmed, the Brunswick Assassins are happy to be up here. They're happy to play along with you guys. They enjoy being here every Saturday, and they just got some good news. The Brunswick Assassins will be coming back this spring in 2018. So they're here. They're here to stay, and hopefully they can turn what has been not quite the best start into something bigger and better down the road. We'll see how it goes. For the Red Knights, Kahari Copeland returned an interception for a touchdown and caught a pass, Will Copeland added 2 touchdown catches. And Dayon Corprew, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct or not. I apologize if I'm not, just reading what I've been given. Caught another. Markel Simpkins caught an extra point. Anthony Smith had an interception. And altogether, Andy Hoffman threw 4 touchdown passes. So a good win for the Knights, but honestly, to me, this game is a lot better if you're Assassins going forward. The third game of the day, a battle which I said was underrated going in. There was not much talk about this one, but to me, this was a big deal. Top Gun 21, Ruckus 13. Close game throughout. The first half was all Ruckus. Ruckus dominated on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. Top Gun's only score came on a pick 6 by Brandon Cato, which, watching the play from where I was at, it seemed like a lot of the Ruckus players may have thought he was out of bounds. Just nobody seemed to go after him. But nonetheless, Cato got the 6 points on the board. Big key moment because it kept him in the game, which led to a much better second half for Ruckus, taking over with 2 long sustained drives, help driven by Ricky Miller, Ryan Lockhart, and Gary Little, and a dominant defense to dismantle Ruckus. For what it's worth, it's like I said, it's been a very interesting turn of fortunes for both these squads. Top Gun is now 6-3 since the end of the spring regular season. 6-3 after they were 0-9. That is just insane to think about. That's a +6 turnaround for Top Gun. Ruckus, on the other hand, since their 7-0 start back in the spring, they are now 3-7. They have lost they've lost 7 of their last 10 games. Now, granted, you could say it is a competition. They have played affiliates. They have played Broad Axe 3 times in that stretch. They played TNT twice in that stretch. So maybe there's nothing to be ashamed of yet for Ruckus. But right now, considering everything they went through, and we'll get to that more when we do the power rankings, it has not been a very good season. For Top Gun, Ricky Miller had 2 touchdown passes, 1 to Ryan Lockhart and 1 to Gary Little. I mentioned Cato's interception return earlier for a touchdown. Johnny Cocho also contributed with an interception. And Corey Smith added 3 extra points to give them the 21-13 victory. Impressive win by Top Gun. Doing very well. Like I said, this is a significantly better squad than what we were seeing back in the spring. The fourth game of the day, the program defeated the GA Spartans 21-7. Program's defense performed. They shut down the Spartans' offense. They punished them in the trenches. This was the best the program has looked all season. To be honest, I seriously thought that this was the team we were going to get with the program, a team that could play defense and just score enough points to win. And they showed that on Saturday. We'll see, however, if they're for real this time, especially with their opponent this week. For the program, C.J. Owings had a touchdown pass to Philip Butler. Mac White ran a touchdown. Abraham Padilla, I've never known anybody named Abraham in this era, had 2 interceptions. J-Dub with a pick 6, and Tim Miller with 3 point-after touchdowns. For the Spartans, Jesse Gentry had a rushing touchdown, and Wyatt Harnish added an extra point. The final game of the day, the main event, the main attraction, the one everybody looks forward to, Affiliate 7, Broad Axe nothing. Defensive game all around. AFN stopped Broad Axe 3 times in the red zone. Broad Axe was able to move the ball, but just couldn't punch it in. Broad Axe, on the other hand, they stopped them twice in the red zone. AFN only scoring the punt return in the second quarter. First time Broad Axe has been shut out in league play in over 7 years. I tried to look it up because I was asked to following the game between Broad Axe and affiliates. I looked it up. There is nothing in the league's webpage that talks about a shutout with Broad Axe. Now, the stats only go back to 2011, but so far from what I'm saying, it hasn't happened in a very, very long time. If anybody on Broad Axe / at the time Miller Lite happens to know when the last one came, please reply in the comments. Love to hear about it. For AFN, James Craig had a punt was the one behind the punt return for a touchdown. Justin Fox kicked the extra point, and Dirt Boy Island, Larry Smith, 2 interceptions on the day. He's definitely showed out and impressed the hell out of me watching him. Great game all around. Broadax had 3 picks between Tommy Evans, Jimmy Meadows, and Zeke Keys with 1 apiece. So, Broadax affiliates, very defensive game. That's what you want to see, especially come playoff time. I get the feeling this won't be the last time we see these two playing. And there's a good chance that they may be the final game, depending on what happens in the next couple weeks. We'll see. Still a lot of football to be played. That is where we now head to our power rankings. Coming in at number 11 this week is the Brunswick Assassins. They are now 0-6 on the year. They learned what the end zone was this past week, but they still don't know what a win is. Sorry. I got a third shade. Number 10 is the Warriors, 0-7. They just didn't have it against the X-Dogs. The new uniforms, they looked amazing, by the way. Stars and stripes. Not quite an affiliates knockoff. They did their own kind of thing with it. But the new uniforms didn't quite translate to a new team. Honestly, this was their worst performance all season, but understandable. They didn't have the pieces they needed. Brandon McClain was out. John Show was out. Snavely was making what was only, I believe, his second start in Washington County flag football play. I think he had he shared time with Show last year in Ruckus. So it wasn't really that fair of a game for Warriors, especially going against a team like the X-Dogs. But nevertheless, 0-7 is the record. Number 9 is the Greencastle Antrim Spartans, 1-5. Finally, the Spartans are eliminated from A bracket contention. This team just hasn't found itself all season. Their stagnation has continued. They are a far cry from where they were heading to, especially a year ago when they were 5-4. It seemed like in the spring maybe it was a growing pain with trying to win games late, but it seemed like a sign of things to come. And since last year, it just seems like the team's gotten worse. Now, granted, they've been here before, as I mentioned. They've been 1-4 the last 3 seasons. But the difference being, like, with last fall's team and last spring's team, you had the sense that this was a team that was on its way up. But with this team, it just feels like they're going nowhere, and if anything, they've devolved from being where they were. And it's a shame because I said this was one of the teams to keep an eye on as they were growing, but Greencastle Antrim Spartans just not what they need to be right now. Number 8 is Ruckus. They are currently sitting on a 3-game losing streak. The offense completely died in the second half against Top Gun. It just vanished. First half, they were able to move the ball. They did well. They scored. Second half, nothing. Top Gun just stood up, punched them in the face, and they never got back up. Defense dismantled in the second half. Top Gun converted, I want to say at one point, a 3rd and 25. They got it down to 4th and 5, and then converted the next play. You just can't do that if you're going to win in this league. You just can't. I always said, like, the 3rd and long plays are the ones that'll kill you. Because not only are they a momentum swinger, but at the same time, it's one of those, like, how you just can't let that happen. You work so hard to push an opponent back and back and back, and then you give up the 1 3rd and long play, and all of a sudden, the other team has confidence, your players are demoralized, and they just never recovered. Top Gun just took over, and they gave it to them. Moving up to number 7 this week is the program, 3-4. Now on a 2-game winning streak. This team seems like they're slowly getting back on track. It's worth noting, though, the 3 wins they have are Assassins, Warriors, Spartans. That's it. So it's one of those, if they're trying to go for the A bracket, they're not going to get very far. But if they're in the B bracket, I'd say they probably might be the odds-on favorite right now, with considering how the rest of the teams in the B are looking. But for the moment, they're still alive for the A. They're 3-4. We'll see what can happen. I mean, they still got 3 games to play. Number 6 is the Red Knights, 4-2 on the year. They played the Assassins very closely in the first 3 quarters, took over in the fourth, and never looked back. A good performance by the Knights. I was a little sketchy after they gave up a touchdown to Assassins, but they pulled it through in the end. They're going to be fine. They're in for probably the hardest part of their schedule coming up, though. It's going to be a very interesting 3 weeks, and we'll get to that momentarily. Number 5 is Top Gun, 4-3. The defense did its part, stepping up when it needed. The offense has shown it can move the ball, but needs to find consistency. Their offense is so unorthodox. And this is no offense to anybody on Top Gun. They don't really have many, if any, true receivers. You got Austin in the backfield. You got Lockhart and Sente at tight end. You have Gary, who is built like a fullback, but he can catch and move like he's a receiver. I envy that because I could never be that good at football. I'm not going to lie. They throw Robbie out there, but he seems more like a tight end to me than a true receiver. It's been one of those things where I've talked to him all season. I've watched his offense, and it's just like, it's not very traditional. You look at other teams and the kind of caliber receivers they have, and then you look at Top Guns, and it's impressive what they've done with that. And that's no slight to them whatsoever. That's impressive. It's a very New England Patriots kind of offense they got going there. With Ricky kind of looking like a little bit of Tom Brady with the escapism of a Fran Tarkenton at the same time. Okay, I might be giving him too much credit. That's a little too much credit. But you get the point what I'm saying with how this offense is played. The defense has really stepped it up. It's been one of the better ones this year. It's actually interesting to look at the stats I did earlier. Top Gun is actually getting outscored by average. They're being outscored 16-12, and they're still 4-3. They just find ways to win. And that, to me, speaks volumes more so than stats and any other metric you might use to measure how good a team is. Number 4 now is X-Dogs, 4-2. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They have not lost since losing to affiliates on September 9th. It's been pretty interesting to watch them get a lot better. Back-to-back shutouts. Defense is showing up. I got to say, if there's anybody who's underrated, in my opinion, going into playoffs next month, if they get to it now, because they're not there yet, if there's one team, though, that's underrated going in, it would be X-Dogs. They are ranked, I want to say, 3rd in difference between points for and points against on average. They are starting to step it up on defense. They still got Matt Eisenberg. They did lose to affiliates, and they have lost to Broadax, but I get the feeling it's going to be a different game when they take on either of those teams come November. Stay tuned for that. Number 3 now is Broadax at 5-2. 2 losses on the season for the first time since 2014, which was my first season back at the WCFFL. Shutout for the first time in over 7 years, as I mentioned. The defense, however, they're still dominant. AFN did not score a single touchdown in that game. It was just that one punt return that made a difference. And honestly, I'm pretty certain AFN maybe had single-digit yards going into the fourth quarter. I just remember, like, the drive just kept stalling out, and Broadax just kept stifling them, but they couldn't do anything on offense because AFN stopped them in the end zone every time. So special teams gave it, like I said, gave them a score to game. Offense could have pounded in, but Broadax ain't dead. Let's be real here. As much as I'm hyping up TMT and AFN in a couple weeks, I did on a broadcast. That is a case where it's more of, let's see which one of these two looks better going in. Which we'll hype that up next week because we still got some games to play this week. But don't count Broadax out. This loss means nothing in the grand scheme of things. They will be back. Number 2 is affiliate, 6-0. The defense bent, but never broke. The offense couldn't move against Broadax, but that to me was more a Broadax is just that good defensively. AFN is now one of 2 teams with a winning record in league play, the other being TMT. 4th shutout of the season. 4th. They have shut out 4 teams. And 2 of those are elite teams, Broad Axe and X-Dogs. They've also shut out Assassins and Warriors, but give or take, it's still pretty impressive that in 6 games, 4 of them, they've allowed no points. This is a very special team and maybe one of the best defenses I've seen in this league. They're only surrendering 4 points per game right now. And the most they gave up was that 18-point game with the Knights. You take that away, and you're looking at a team that is probably surrendering maybe 1 point per game, if not less. It's very impressive to watch. And the number 1 team in the league is TNT, once again, 6-0. But that's because they were off this week. They will return against Warriors on Saturday. We'll get to that prediction in a moment. Just reading I'm actually glad to hear that defeat is flawless for once. That Potage was a little laggy. I don't know. It's much better. It's much better than when I get at Tony's. And I'm sorry if the lighting's a little wonky tonight. I'm just working with nothing but lamps in here. I'll try to do better on that next time. It might be Antietam for some of you. I know that Ross told me he has Comcast. So I envy that, trust me. As an Antietam cable customer in this for about 13 years now. Anyways, time to get to the story portion of it. I'll reply to some of the comments over later on after the show. Going off script here. Today's team I'm going to be showcasing, because I showcased Mack Truck Builders about a month ago. In the last episode, I did the West Virginia Ducks. This one I've been waiting to do. I've waited for last because, you got to save the best for last. And that is the Survivors. To give it time. And look at there. There's the man himself in the comments section, Daniel Taylor, co-founder of Survivors with me back in the fall of 2014. Survivor started out as an idea him and I had. We wanted to take guys we played football with in the backyard, and we wanted to build our own football team with it. And we started this process. I'm getting a lot of emotional reactions at once here. We started this process the previous fall. We started getting guys together. We played some games over at Boonesboro and Schaefer Park back in the spring, and we decided, let's just keep doing this, find people, and the guys we got along with, we could play with, we build a team with. Sometime over that summer, our Uncle Ben Bassford, who used to play up here in this league on both my team and my dad's team 20 years ago, he hit up Daniel to go and recruit some guys that he knew and put them together. He'd be owner of the team, and Daniel would be the GM. And Daniel sought out to me to coach. This is where it's kind of a little bit of a personal story here. So the way I became coach of Survivors was because I hadn't heard much about the idea in months. I was kind of coasting that summer. The way I heard about it was for those who know or don't know, back in August 2014, I was arrested for breaking and entering into the Fredericktown Mall. And with that, I was fired by Wegmans, shamed over Facebook and the Frederick News Post, and My Fox Dallas in Texas. Yeah, look it up. My article made it to My Fox Dallas in Texas. So that night, me and the 2 friends of mine who were arrested all went to, and when I say break in, just to elaborate, we went in to explore the place. It was abandoned for about 10 years. We wanted to check it out. It was a childhood stoppage of mine when I was a kid. There's no businesses that has operated out since 2008, 11 maybe. So we just got curious, made a mistake, shouldn't have done it. No regrets though. And so I got fired from Wegmans, and we went to the bar, Gigi's in Sharpsburg, and our friend's dad bought us all beer, and I was on at least my sixth tall blue moon when Daniel was texting me and asking me, "Hey, come over here, and I got a football team going. Sorry about the job thing, man. But come over here and help coach us, dude." And I said, "Yeah, sure, I got this." Next morning, I just checked my text, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, so that happened." I agreed to become a flag football coach. I didn't know anything about nine-man football back then. I remember my dad playing as a kid, but that was in 1997, 98. To me, I didn't even know the Washington County Flag Football League existed anymore. I remembered it was a thing, but I remember my dad stopped playing around '04, and I stopped going to games like a couple years earlier because I just got bored of it. And so I was shocked to find out this league was even alive. I was even more shocked that Miller Lite was still a thing. I remember that name growing up. So imagine my shock when the league is what it was. And at the time, it was us, Ruckus, Nighthawks, X-Dogs, Miller Lite, and Red Knights. It wasn't very good. For those of you newbies to this league, 2014 and anything that comes a little bit prior to it and even the spring afterwards was just brutal. There was just nothing to it. Just 5-6 teams. Half of the league was just kind of there. We were just used as bodies for X-Dogs, Knights, and Broadax to beat up on. As time went on, though, things changed, of course. Ruckus would still be around today. Nighthawks eventually began the program. And with us, we had a nice group of guys together. That first fall Survivors team, I'm going to say it, we weren't good at all. We had guys who weren't familiar with nine-man. We had no true receivers. Our best athlete was Justin Russell, and that was it. And Justin, in his case, he was better as a running back out of an I formation than he was as a wide receiver. So we used Justin to death. I think I can still name every quarterback we played that fall. Nick Knight, Daniel Taylor, other Daniel Taylor. We had two Daniel Taylors. Ben Bassford, R.J. Hilliard, who's currently with Assassins, Dontel Watts, who played with TMT, as the mouthy corner you guys probably see. Oh, wait, which one? Anyways, I might get stumped here. Yeah, I'm stumped here. Because we played 5 in one game against X-Dogs. I remember that. And it was a travesty. We weren't very organized. And a lot of that was just a bit of an issue where we had our own philosophy. Ben had his. Everybody else had their own. And we just couldn't find a middle ground, which that happens, especially with a new team. We ended up going 0-11 our first year. We were shut out 7 times. But to be honest with you, I cannot name a better group of guys with so much heart and passion on the terms of playing the game of football on the field as that first Survivors team. We weren't good, but I could tell those guys wanted to win. They had their heart in it. We practiced our asses off, and just to get better. We were very close. We had a nice tight bond together. I was head coach up until about the following spring. Then I had some issues come up again, and I had to step back down. Ultimately, this is actually the third year Survivors. I don't have the first year anymore. I don't know where it went. Ultimately, things just didn't work out, like they do. I'm sure a lot of you know that the team you start with is never the one you finish with, and with Survivors, that was the case. We carried in a lot of guys over to year 2, but lost a few of them to year 3. And then year 4, it was a whole new team. And I always will give Daniel credit for banding together a new team after he lost everybody. He had 4 guys when he started that spring. And those 4 guys ended up staying around. But in the end, Survivors ended up folding at the end of last fall. I had already left the team by that point. Their final game was a close loss to Food Lion in the semifinals, 28-14. But I will say, like, the team was in much better shape by the end of it than what it was when it all started. And I give a lot of props to Daniel and how he did the team. Good times. I'm actually going to be writing a book soon about my first season with Survivors entitled Survive in Advance. Anyways, I can tell you guys are probably getting bored of the story. I see the reactions over in the video. I'll move on to predictions now. But yeah, Survivor strong, guys. Prediction time. Woo. Your first game on Saturday is the number 11 Brunswick Assassins versus number 8 Ruckus. 9 a.m. kickoff. First ever meeting between both squads. A must-win for Ruckus. 3 straight losses have been rough. A fourth be detrimental to this team's health. Assassins are still overmatched in the trenches and in the perimeter. I feel like the Ruckus superior athletes and line play should be the difference here. They definitely should win this game. And no slight to Assassins, but I'm going to go Ruckus by 3 to 4 touchdowns. They have the firepower to do this. If they don't, then I don't know what to say. However, if they do lose, they will be officially eliminated from A bracket contention. So, Ruckus over Assassins. Expect Ruckus to stay alive for one more week. The second game of the day is the number 6 Red Knights versus number 3 Broad Axe. 10:30 a.m. kickoff. This is a big-time rivalry game, perhaps the biggest in the Washington County Flag Football League. Easily the game of the week to me. Irregardless of what the records are, irregardless of what happened last week. However, the Knights have not been able to beat Broad Axe since October 4th, 2014. Broad Axe has now won 10 in a row. And the most recent meeting was May 21st with Broad Axe winning 16-14. You all may remember it was 14-0 until the 2-minute warning. And then Broad Axe just absolutely exploded. 2 touchdowns and a safety to win the game. Perhaps one of the greatest comebacks, not just in league play, but maybe in the history of all football. That's just insane how it all turned around for them in the last 2 minutes after 58 minutes of just doing nothing. The Knights, however, are not the same team, but they seem to have better chemistry. Broad Axe, however, they're much superior, in my opinion. They have they have the chemistry already down. They have the playmakers on both sides of the ball. I think the trench ward are going to decimate the Knights O-line. It could be a long day for Andy Hoffman. I'm going to go with Broad Axe by 2 touchdowns in the end of this one. However, if the Knights do win, they will clinch a spot in the A bracket. The third game of the day is the number 9 Greencastle Antrim Spartans versus number 4 X-Dogs, 12 p.m. Second meeting between both squads. X-Dogs defeated Spartans 31-6 last fall. That was a much different time period, trust me. They were on the way up, and Spartans were. And X-Dogs didn't have Matt Eisenberg, so this could be a lot worse. Because X-Dogs defense is white hot right now. Spartans are stagnating. They're going to have to find a way to shorten this game because I don't think they can get in the shootout with X-Dogs, and I don't think they're as physical as they are. And I'm going to say X-Dogs should win this one. They'll clinch an A bracket spot of a win. I'm going to say a 3 touchdowns win is probably after them. This team is looking to get more momentum, especially heading into playoffs, especially considering they're going to have 2 very good games in the next few weeks with the Knights and TMT. So keep an eye on that. Speaking of TMT, they will take on the Warriors, number 10 versus number 1, 1:30 kickoff, second meeting ever between these squads. TMT defeated Warriors in their first game 40-0 last spring. TMT has a bigger advantage on both sides of the ball. The Warriors will need to play the clock in order to stay in this game. Like I said, if you're going to have to beat TMT, you're going to have to keep them off the field. Because if that offense gets going, they thrive with the momentum, they're going to beat you every single time. You can't afford to give them too many possessions. You know this. But as in the whole, I don't see Warriors winning this game, no matter if it's Shobe quarterbacking or Snavely quarterbacking, especially if Ryan Rao quarterbacks. They're not going to win this game. Mismatch is expected, TMT big. This one won't be close. The final meeting of the day, which there could be some kind of potential here if they have it together finally. The number 7 team in the league, the program, versus the number 2 team, Affiliate Nation. 3 p.m. kickoff. First meeting ever between both these squads. The program is starting to catch fire. Back-to-back wins. against Spartans and Warriors. Affiliates are the superior team. The program's defense will need to keep the midness. If there is a time for their so-called great defensive line to show, it's going to have to be Saturday. Because AFN's offense, they struggle to move the ball against Broadax. They do have a good line, which is the interesting thing about watching that, at least on the left side. But their last play, their line play on O should be enough to handle what the program dishes out, in my opinion. AFN's defense should dominate the program's offense. You have on the one hand, program's offense, they can't move the ball very well. And then you got AFN's defense, who gives up nothing. With a loss, the program will be eliminated from A-bracket contention, and I'm pretty certain that's what's going to happen. The program will keep it interesting early, but the superior line play and athletes will give AFN the victory. I'm going to go AFN probably about 2 to 3 scores. I can't see the program winning this game. I really can't. They've had line problems all season. The offense has not been able to really move the ball. Even when they have, it's been against Warriors, Spartans, and Assassins. That's it. And with AFN's defense playing as great as it is, they might be a little hangover from the Broadax game, but I just don't see it. Affiliate's big, and the stage will be set for the showdown in a couple weeks. 10 days, TMT, AFN. We'll have more talk on that next week. And that'll do it for tonight, actually. So, good seeing you guys. Just want to get some notes out of the way. I will be broadcasting the Knights and Broadax game on Saturday. That'll be my game of the week. Anybody who wants to volunteer their phone for me to live stream, I've learned recently that Apple's fixed their widescreen problem with live stream, so iPhones are still accessible. I'm going to be at the field all day. If anybody wants me to film their game, I'll do it. But for now, the only one I'm doing is Broadax versus Red Knights. That's the one I'm using my phone. So till then, ride on up to Marty's Snook Park for a fun football frenzy. Good night, everybody. Or something. I don't know. I'm really spaced out right now, so I apologize for that. Let me fix that. Washington County Flag Football League plays every Saturday morning at Marty's Snook Park. Games are at 9 a.m., 10:30, 12 p.m., 1:30, and 3. So ride on up this Saturday for a fun football frenzy to Marty's Snook Park in fabulous Hagerstown, Maryland. Good night, everyone.